that. Me pregame here, but we are live for the Tuesday Golf Show. Awesemo.com, Ben Raza, Tim Frank, Fantasy Golf Man with me. We go to Asia. Asian swing is beginning. It's a string of non-cuts. It's a string of weird lock times. We're going to get into all that. Are you excited for the change? Were you sick of watching these swing season events?
Yeah, I kind of am excited for the change, the no-cut event. I used to hate no-cut events, but I'm kind of slowly warming to them. I don't know. I remember, I always hated them because I felt like I needed, like, whether I thought a guy, like, miscut. Like, that was a big part of my process. Like, yeah, what was the chances the guy missed the cut? And I've really kind of given up on that. I don't even, it's like when you're playing GPPs, the miscut doesn't really, it matters, but it doesn't. You shouldn't be thinking in that term. So I kind of like the guaranteed 4 rounds now. It's kind of like, just you get 4 rounds to prove that your process was right or your projections were right rather than 2 rounds and then the cut. So yeah, I'm kind of growing, or the no cut events have kind of been growing on me recently.
I guess for me too, I'm definitely not a fan of them, but I will say with the new cut rules, it's a nice change of pace because 6 of 6 is so grueling lately. This is a week where you don't have to panic after Friday. You're gonna have a lot of golf. I wish, truth be told, I'd be a lot more excited for this if we had Shot Tracker. It makes it tough when you can't really sweat it and you don't know what's going on. And that's what we're gonna get with the CJ Cup. So we'll see. The field is decent. Other than that, though, I do like the change of pace, and we have some interesting events coming up. The Zoizo, the new tournament, and then the WGC in China.
I'm annoyed. The CIMB, that's just gone. I used to love
Gone.
that tournament. That was one of my favorites. Like 28 under par winning score. That was
So shady. It's funny you say that because we're gonna dig into this. This course, so it's only been played twice. The first year clearly was windy. -9 was the winner. The second year -21. So it's a really interesting kind of sample size that we have. We'll dive into what you're doing with that, but I do miss the CIMB. That was certainly a playground to go crazy low.
Yeah, it was fun. It was like, middle of the night, guys shooting 64 and you're getting passed by everybody because like 8 under par was really nothing. So
True story. But before we get into it, I do want to say I see Chad in full force. What's up, fellas? And our sponsor, FantasyDraft, sticking with us. We do appreciate that. The only place where you can play rake-free daily fantasy, 100% of the entry fees go towards those contests. So if you want to sign up, if you haven't, use the promo code AWESEMO. 7-day free trial. Get in there, play some golf, play some NFL. They've got some big tournaments running. But I guess we'll dive right in. So right off the top, we got 78 guys. It looks like, so I saw that Pat Perez and Luke List withdrew, and now it looks like they did not withdraw. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. For right now, we'll say everybody is in. What do you make of the field? And then we'll get into what do you make of the 9 bridges?
yeah, it's a pretty decent field. We have some decent names at the top, so I like that. Definitely a change of pace from last week, which was pretty terrible. So yeah, it is a good field. Like you said, played at 9 bridges just the last 2 years. We've only seen this event twice. As you alluded to, the first year super windy, so JT and Leishman in a playoff at 9 under. Cam Smith at 8 under, so that just tells you what kind of a terrible event that was because he almost made a playoff and he's awful. Wee Kim was 4th. It was just a very odd tournament. But yeah, a lot of that was due to the wind. Played really tough. It was the 4th toughest course on tour that year. And then last year, kind of a birdie fest. Brooks won at 21 under. Then you had Woodland, Palmer, RCB, Gay, and Piercy. So the wind was down last year. We saw a lot more scoring. And I think that's pretty much the key to this course. If there's going to be wind, it's going to play tough. If there's not wind, it's going to play pretty easy. It's a 7,250-yard par 72. There's a little bit of elevation, so it kind of plays shorter than the card would indicate. So really not a ton of length required here. But, you look at last year and pretty much all the guys at the top outside of RCB were bombers: Brooks, Woodland, Day, Piercy. So I think a slight advantage to length. We'd probably give a slight advantage to length every week unless there was something drastic about the course, like at Harbortown. So Nothing different this week. Slight advantage to length, but with 2 years, a 2 year sample size, that's really nothing. And especially with 1 year, you can almost throw that out the window because of the weather. I'm going to just kind of play it right down the middle. I'm going to not take too much out of this 2 year sample size.
So that's the thing that is kind of, I don't want to say ridiculous. It's a 2 year sample size, but one of the years is going to be non pertinent because they were the most polar opposite extremes. Now, I do like that you get a glimpse of maybe what we could see if it's windy and what we could see if it's not. I do plan to use some of that information, but it is not easy to really draw parallels between the 2 years. So, what we know, the fairways are super generous. You're going to be able to get away with some stuff off the tee. You're going to be able to hit some greens, but scrambling is going to be timely and important in certain aspects. Now, if the wind is up, it's going to be really important. I don't think we see that necessarily. So, length definitely going to be an advantage. You'll have the option to get away with some things off the tee. And then from there, bent grass, make some putts. It is at elevation. I'll be talking about that a little when we get to some of these guys. But I guess we'll get into it. You know, we got JT leading us off. Then we got Brooks, Decky, Hovland, Fleetwood, Morikawa, and your boy Jordan Spieth. A lot of guys up there in terms of the salary. Do you think you're going to go to one of the 11K guys, which is just JT and Brooks, or are you more apt to pay down maybe for like a Hovland or Fleetwood?
No, I mean, I like JT all the way at the top. I mean, he's dialed in. We saw it at the end of last year. The ball striking was phenomenal and the putter was a little cold. And then it kind of all came together towards the end of the year. He played the safe way where he was T4. The ball striking was good. That week gained 5 strokes. The ball striking, we never know what to make of Brooks. So erratic. We don't know if he cares about these events. I know he did win here last year. But to me, JT is one of the few guys who his A game is just as good as Brooks's A game, but he's way more consistent than Brooks is. So, I mean, to me, I think JT is just the superior play for only $300 more, just because it's so much of an unknown with Brooks. I'm guessing there's going to be an ownership discount with Brooks, but I just think back a couple weeks to Cantlay at the Shriners where we thought he was going to be mega chalk because he seemed like the obvious play at the top. And he came in at 20%, which was pretty palatable ownership considering, I don't know, we were probably thinking mid-30s for him. So it's hard to tell what people are going to do. In a vacuum, I just think JT is just the better play just because he's, in my mind, as good as Brooks, yet way more consistent than Brooks.
So with a non-cut, I think I'm going to probably get a little aggressive there. And I think when you talked about it, it's really an ownership thing because with lack of shot link data, people are going to look at recent form and course history probably heavier than maybe they should, or it's just the facts of what's going to happen. And JT really has that. People looked at Brooks at the Shriners, and it's another bullet point to, oh, Brooks, he doesn't care outside majors. I think you're going to get significant discount when you're talking head to head against JT. JT is the betting favorite. It's worth noting. I think that's a little much. But at the same time, if it's a significant discount, I will roll with Brooks and be against the grain there. But I also have a lot of interest in Fleetwood in particular. He's been kind of hanging out in Europe. Saw him at Alfred Dunhill. I think his game sets up perfectly for this type of course. Ball striking, timely putting, do his thing. Now, he hasn't played here, but I think it's, like I said, a fine fit at best.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was looking at Morikawa's stats, who's 10-1, $200 cheaper than Fleetwood. And, the approach game for Morikawa has just been amazing, and we'll get to Fleetwood in a second. I just kind of wanted to compare and contrast them a little bit. Morikawa, this year, he's gained 1.08 strokes on approach in 8 measured rounds. Last year, he gained 0.887 in 32 measured rounds. He would have been the 4th best on tour in approach game. And I really wanted to play Morikawa, but it just seems like Fleetwood, we've just seen so much more of him. We've seen him for a longer time competing at a higher level for only $200 more. It really just makes sense. And we know Fleetwood's a great ball striker as well as Morikawa. It just seems to me to make more sense to pay the extra $200 for Fleetwood. I was initially drawn to Morikawa, but then it's like, man, I don't know. It's just, we know Morikawa is good, but we've seen Fleetwood doing it in stronger fields for a longer time. And I do like Fleetwood. I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this, and Morikawa was great. He's going to be really good. He is really good now. But man, you're in a nosebleed section with Tommy Fleetwood and some of the guys even below him. I have a tough time unless there's some reason that Morikawa is going to be like 5% owned, and I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
Spieth is going to be the one who's low owned, and I'm not going to go there. So I think Fleetwood's interesting. The guy I don't know what to do with is Hideki. It hasn't been perfect, but at the same time, it's still Hideki. He's shown some form here and there. The ball striking was back at Shriners. He just couldn't putt as usual. He kind of feels lost up there just because he hasn't won in so long, and he really hasn't been that close to winning.
Yeah, I think he hit the nail on the head there. He's had great events. He's had some poor events, a little bit inconsistent, but just seems, guys like JT and Brooks seem far, far more likely to win this event than Decky does. Now, I mean, and that's odds, outright odds aside. We have JT at 6 or 7-1, Brooks at 8-1, Hideki at 16-1. But it just seems like, I don't know. Yeah, it seems like it's just not quite all firing for Hideki. Even the good events he has, he's never really contending. So I'm with you. I think if I'm going up, it'll be for JT. I don't think I'll be playing much Hideki.
Yeah, I don't know. The jury's still out for me on that, and I'll see what's what. But he's behind Brooks for me. He's behind Fleetwood. So one thing I wanted to get right off, because you're going to hear me reference it probably 20 times in this show. I think that this course is somewhat comparable to the WGC Mexico course. It's got some altitude. Now that's a par 71, but still some similar aspects of it. Clearly, you can get away with driving because Phil did good down there. And Fleetwood is someone who's really responded to that course in particular. He's got a lot of success down in Mexico. So that is just one more bullet point for me. I know Fleetwood win equity style. He's not the guy who really takes him down too often, but at the same time, I can gladly get behind him at 10-3. Anything else before we move below the Spieth line?
No, Hovland and Morikawa just seem like they're in the same boat. I think people will play him because they're the new guys. The stats are amazing, but yeah, really expensive now that they're priced up with some pretty elite players. So it's going to be hard for me to get to either Hovland or Morikawa. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, it's really good, but you also have to take into account, how long we've seen these guys. Have they played at a high level for as long of time as guys like Fleetwood or guys like Hideki?
Absolutely. And we know the top tier talent is there with Hovland. We know he can, but his around the green and short game, it's a non-zero chance that prevents him in the short term from really getting dangerous, especially in somewhat stronger fields. So he's towards the back of the list. You can't play everybody. And in this field, he's certainly one of the stronger. He's priced like one of the stronger guys. So let's move down a bit. So Sungjae Im won last week. Where? I don't know. It was somewhere in Asia. He played in an alternate field, certainly against lesser competition, and beat up on some guys. So he's been over there. Then we got RCB, Jason Day, Gary Woodland, Billy Ho, Leishman. Chad is asking about RCB, who he's been playing very well over in Europe. I think this is a pretty good course for him as well. Do you have any interest there, or are you going with more known commodities?
Yeah, pretty expensive, 9,600 for me in this field. Third here last year, 11th the year before, so two really good finishes. We've seen him second, where was that, at the Spanish Open, I believe, and then sixth at the BMW PGA. So two recent finishes, very good on the European Tour. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get there. He's more of a guy that I feel like we like him at 7,800 in a strong field, or 9,600. That's pretty expensive, especially when he's priced up with some fairly elite players. He's just not a guy. That Spanish Open field wasn't great where he was T2 in. That seems like it's inflating his current or his recent form a little bit, in my opinion.
It's an interesting kind of breakdown because he's clearly paying the course history tax. I don't think anyone can deny that. But on the other side, he's playing pretty well, and clearly he's, in his brief history here, has had success. So I'm interested to see what ownership does with him, because you have two colliding things. He's clearly overpriced, But the recent form course history combo, which again, I keep saying it, when you don't have strokes gain data, recent form and course history are just what people look at even more. And they say, okay, this guy's playing pretty well and he likes this course. Boom. I think he's still going to be fairly popular, even though he's $100 more than Jason Day and some of the other guys we rattled off. That is not really where he usually falls in the hierarchy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather take a shot with Jason Day and hope that he found something
Better have found something, I swear
in
to
the
God.
time off, because he hasn't been good. But I would never pay $100 more for RCB than Jason Day.
And it's, good point brought up by chat. Like everything, site dependent. So shop around. FanDuel, maybe a little easier to get him in. And FantasyDraft, same kind of concept. So make sure you're looking around. If you do like a guy, you can find. Now ownership will deviate as well, but it is important to be price sensitive. Jason Day, I know you just mentioned him. So he's got the skins game coming up too, right? With Tiger and the gang. He better. I'll say this. This is a generous course off the tee, so that helps him a bit. The big thing for him, and we talked about this late last year, he would have been, to me, probably the best scrambler in the world, maybe. Certainly in the top couple. And he was just a bad scrambler late last year. He was losing strokes around the green. That is so atypical. So it's going to be interesting to see if that was some type of outlier and he returns to what we had normally seen. I mean, he is a fantastic around the green player historically.
Yeah, and I mean, we have a really long sample size of him being
Huge.
great around the green, and you wouldn't think that that's something that kind of comes and goes, I don't know. You don't usually see guys lose their short game. You see kind of like the off the tee might get a little wonky from time to time. Approach game, definitely. Putting, definitely. But usually, if you're strong around the green, that's kind of something that's consistent week in and week out. So yeah, I mean, I don't love Day, but I'm just saying if we're comparing him to RCB, I'd rather just take a shot with Day.
Yeah, I mean, I always have interest in Day, as Chet just pointed out, but I also do like RCB, and the guy that I really like is Sergio, who is another one. He's found his form in Europe. He comes here. He's going to gain off the tee. His approaches seem to have been better, and I think this course kind of suits his game. He hasn't played here, which I actually don't mind at all. He is sandwiched between Leishman and Cam Smith, both who have 2 years of success here. So I don't think ownership will funnel to Sergio too much, especially at lower stakes. Uh, Guy is just playing well, and he left a sour taste on a lot of people's mouth with how bad he was on the PGA side of things last year.
Yeah, this isn't a range that I love. There's not a ton of guys I like here. But yeah, he's definitely getting dialed in. 7th at the Spanish Open, won the KLM Open a few weeks ago. So, the European Tour form is really good. And yeah, that's a good price for him as well. I prefer him. I'm not a Cam Smith guy. Leishman's been up and down, so I wouldn't mind Sergio at all at 9,100.
Yeah, I get, Leishman, if he's healthy, who knows? It seems like he is, and then the strokes are all over the place. I have no strong take on him, to be honest. For me, Sergio is probably the priority in the lower nines. And it just depends how you build. If you want to be really different, you could start down here and really kind of go balanced. If you're going aggressive, this could be, obviously your second man in, and then you're going to have to find some cheapies as we get down there. So moving on just a little bit, we still have plenty of good names. Danny Willett is playing fantastic. He's found his form after a long hiatus. You got the Wolfman, Neiman, Kevin Na, Putnam, Benny On, Ches. We don't need to talk about him. What do you make of this next range?
Yeah, well, you said something about Wolf going into the Safeway, and I kind of blew you off at the time. But then I thought about it more, and it was a good point. He seems underpriced. I mean, you look at Hovland at 10.5, you look at Morikawa at 10.1, and Wolf was a little bit inconsistent or less consistent than those guys last year. But the talent level is just as good, if not better. We saw him win. He played well at the Safeway. I wouldn't mind taking a shot at him here at 8,800, kind of under the same premise that you mentioned at the Safeway, where those other guys are priced up. He's really in the same class as they are, but just seems he's discounted. I don't know if some of that's due to the inconsistency, But I mean, if I would play Wolf before I played either Hovland or Morikawa, I just think the price is a lot better, and he was good at the Safeway.
At Shriners. But yeah, point taken
Shiner,
for sure.
sorry, yeah.
But no problem. And yeah, I mean, just to kind of regurgitate that, I think that we're too quick to make a hierarchy of these new guys where it's like, oh, well, we know this guy, like Hovland's the best, then Morikawa, then yeah, maybe, or maybe not. And I think when you have a range of outcomes with Wolf, there is a chance that he is wildly underpriced for a long time when we see kind of how he develops. There's also on the flip side a chance that all these guys are overpriced and maybe they're not as good as we've seen in this brief stretch. But at the same time, you mentioned he did play really well at Shriners. He is going to gain off the tee. He is in that level with some of these other guys. I worry a little bit that his irons come and go, but at the same time, just to speak to both sides of that, he is, I would say, a stronger short game than a guy like Hovland. He has shown that he can gain around the green and he can make some putts. So more well-rounded. And he's my favorite of, if you told me I had to pick him, Wolf, or Morikawa or Hovland, I would pick Wolf.
Yeah, and the same thing applies to him that applies to these other guys that just mash it off the tee, and we've talked about it before, is the approach game doesn't need to be as good if you're Cameron Champ or if you're John Rahm or if you're Matthew Wolff. It just doesn't need to be because you're setting yourself up off the tee so consistently well that a break-even approach game is going to yield some really good birdie opportunities.
No doubt. So, in this range, what do you think of Willett in particular? Because, like I said, he's another one in Europe, but man, he's been fantastic. Won it out for Wentworth, 23rd here last year. Game's pretty solid. Any qualms about using him?
I don't have any qualms. I would still be preferential to Wolff. It's just hard for me. I'd put so much more emphasis on PGA Tour finishes and strokes gained stats. He seems to be doing all of the damage on the European Tour, where he plays primarily. And I mean, obviously, we know what kind of golfer he is when the game is good. Won many times on the European Tour. Won recently on the European Tour, Masters champion. But it's just hard for me when we don't see him on the PGA Tour. I like to look at those strokes gained stats. And maybe that's just a leak in my game where I'm too reliant on stuff like that. But yeah, I probably won't play Willett. But he's playing good, and he's definitely back to where we saw him a couple years ago. And even prior to winning that Masters, I mean, he was a really good player on the European Tour. I mean, he just battled injuries early on in his career, and I think that's why he was relatively unknown. So
for sure, it wasn't that crazy for him to.
No.
I mean, of course, it's a step up, but it wasn't like he came out of completely nowhere to win the Masters. It was he was a quality player, and he's shown again that after losing it, he's found it, and I have no problem. I definitely prefer Wolff. Oh boy, the guy that I'm really torn on is Neiman. He's another one. We know what he's going to do with the ball striking. It seems like it's automatic right now, but he's back. Not sure it ever left, maybe for a stretch, but he is back to just being a god awful chipper. His around the green game has really left him, and it's showing that if he doesn't strike it absolutely fantastic, he can't really hang in.
Yeah, I don't mind him, coming off the missed cut, but I think we've seen a long enough stretch where he was so good that, a missed cut 1 out of every 10 times out or a lackluster performance doesn't bother me too much. We just have a really long period of him playing really well, and I hate to say when it is a no-cut event, like some of these guys where you're just worried about them having an absolute abortion with the putter or an absolute abortion around the greens in round 1 or 2 and just killing themselves, there's a little less worry about that because you're getting 4 rounds. And if he has just an awful time on and around the greens in round 1 or 2, he's not going to sink you. You're going to get an opportunity for 4 rounds for that ball striking to come through and maybe the putter or the chipping to just come back a little bit. So a less of a worry for me. So I don't mind Neiman at all. I think we've seen since about the middle of last year, he's been one of the most consistent ball strikers on tour.
He really has. I think he's someone, and I think the weather is trending this way. We'll have just public announcement. The Wednesday night golf show, considering this locks, is being moved to tonight. So me and Jason Roslin will be breaking it down at 8 o'clock tonight. So come on back and we'll talk lineups and weather and things like that. Neiman's someone, if it looks like it's going to resemble the year that Brooks won with a minus 21, I have a lot more interest. I don't think he's necessarily built for a grinded out, lower scoring type of. I want a shootout if I roster Neiman.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, if it's going to be windy, and it's going to winning score is going to be around single digits or low double digits, and you're going to need to rely on the short game, Neiman's not a guy you want any part of.
No, that is correct. For the rest of the 8K range, what I guess what do you make of it? Are you going to go to Benyon? Are you going
I
to go to
hate it. I
Fratelli?
hate it. That's what I make of it.
It's bad. I like
It's
Hatton
a
a little
weird
bit.
week. It's really, for me, going to probably be a stars and scrubs week. Um, Not just because of the no cut, but just because I feel like there are a lot of guys below 7K and even in the low 7Ks that I really like. And that's just going to leave me a lot of room to play guys at, in the upper nines and tens and guys like JT. So, yeah, low nines in the 8K range is kind of a dead range for me, but I think it'll work out just because there's a lot of cheap guys I like and a lot of expensive guys I like. So it's probably going to be a stars and scrubs week for me.
Okay. Well, then let's keep. We're gonna start to get to some of these characters. That we still have some guys. We crossed the 8K range with Rory Sabatini. We got Corey Connors, Poulter. I mean, Ryan Moore. Your fans in chat want to know about Scott Piercy. What do you make of this? It's a bunch of pretty much PGA Tour regulars. Those kind of guys that we've seen for a long time.
I love Connors at
Oh,
7,800.
here we go. Of course.
He was, I mean, we in the two events that we've seen him this year, he missed the cut at the Safeway, but it was all putting, which that's just what's going to happen with him. He gained 4.2 with the ball striking. And then he was T13. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
T13 at the Safeway. I'm getting the Safeway, the Shriners.
It all blends together. What can I say? Swing
Yeah, it's like
season.
they're all just whatever. Anyway, but he gained 10.8 strokes with the ball striking the last time we saw him, where he was T13. So I mean, just two like lights out ball striking performances, and that's what we get out of him. The putter was not good one week. The putter was fine the other week. We saw a miscut. We saw a T13. I mean, he is. I mean, he's just a guy that gets hotter than anybody with the irons. It's a little inconsistent. You're not going to get great ball striking out of him every week, but he just has like super high upside in the ball striking. He just gets so dialed in, like we saw him at Valero, where it was just hit the fairway and just striping it to like 6 or 8 feet, and it seems like on every green. And for 7,800 in a no cut event, I love that.
He really has become what we thought Griot would be. So yeah, I mean, when you can strike it that consistently, and there's always a chance with him that he can hold it together on the greens, 4 rounds of that, I have no problem. He is a true top end ball striker, even in a field of this caliber. He really is. But you do have other ball strikers. Scott Piercy is someone who can get crazy hot with the irons. We know that. And then, I mean, you saw the video this morning. Griot can't even make putts when he's making putts. Do you have any interest in him?
I mean, I do, just because I've played him so much, but it's like a sickness at this point. And it's just possible. I think I talked about this last week. There should just be two groups of golfers: guys that are bad putters that can sometimes putt okay and do some damage and make the cut, and guys that are just hopeless. And he might be hopeless on the green, but it's awful.
He's in a third category. He's not even hopeless. Like when he putts well, he would elevate to hopeless. It's not there. I had multiple. I'll put it like this: I had multiple people on Twitter alert me to that video. It was bad. All right, here we go. Northern. I'm just gonna read them off. Northern Trust minus 5.2. BMW minus 3.1. Sanderson Farms minus 5.6. Safeway minus 3.9. And his best putting performance in 2 months was at Shriners, where he only lost 3 strokes putting.
Then he missed the cut, so it was only 3 strokes putting in 2 rounds. Two rounds.
Now, no one's that bad at putting. Clearly, he's going to regress. It's just a matter of the ball striking hasn't been out of this world lately. It's been quality, and it always is. So I've really cooled on him. I may have a couple shares just because I am enamored with the way he strikes it. but man, it's not inspiring a ton of confidence. So if he garners ownership, and a lot of times he does, it's a pretty dicey situation, even at 7,300.
Yeah, I'm with you, and it's he's not a guy like Connors who, when he's on, we feel like a top 10 is in the range of outcomes. It kind of feels like when he's on, like it's like T35. I mean, it's just how we ever got hooked on this guy. I don't
That's a
know.
fair question too. Um,
Something needs to change. We can talk about Piercy quickly. I mean, he's another inconsistent guy, but when the ball striking is on, it's really on. We'll see him gain 8 or 9 strokes with the ball striking, and then go multiple weeks where it's just kind of break even. So I don't mind him in tournaments. The inconsistency kind of scares me a little bit, but 7,400 is a good price. I think if the weather is good, Birdie Fest environment is probably where you'd rather have Scott Piercy. So I don't
yes.
mind him. Um, probably won't be like a core play or a core target for me. But we've seen him get very hot, and that's a good price for him, and he can do some damage in a Birdie Fest.
No argument there. So carrying on with some really disturbing thoughts, do you think that the generous fairways are enough to can even think about rostering Phil?
No, I haven't rostered Phil in so long. I haven't even thought about it, but the ball striking was good. I guess he gained 4.2 the last time we saw him.
He's got to
No.
win at Mexico. Uh-oh.
I mean, sure, yeah. I guess if we're gonna make that parallel,
Nah.
but it was weird. He gained 4.2 at the ball striking the last time out, but he was still T61. So it was like one of those things where it's like you got good ball striking, and he was still not good.
Yeah, I think that's more risk. You're building a buck 50 in the $8 or something. You want to sprinkle in a couple Phil shares because it's only 78 guys, but you have to ask yourself, is he just done? I think that's a real question that we can ask at this point. If you think the answer to that is no, then this is a spot I don't actually mind it. But I'm not sure that the answer is no, to be honest. He has shown no signs, even like you said, even last week. Now the putting let him down, but still, uh, I think there's just easier spots to attack. So I'm gonna work down. I don't want to say crazy play, but I like Joel Dahmen a good amount. He's someone that he had a bad stretch after Wells Fargo, but man, he responded at Shriners, gained across the board. The ball striking was phenomenal, and that's really his calling card. He needs to be crisp with the irons.
Yeah, I'm with you. T9 at the Shriners where he gained 6.5. Missed the cut at the Safeway, but he gained a stroke with the ball striking in 2 rounds. That's not bad. And then the Greenbrier, he was T36, but he gained 4.5 with the ball striking. So it's been good, and then this is a good price for him. I'm with you. I like Joel Dahmen this week.
Yeah. Anyone else in the 7K range? We've got Varner, Luke List, pending that he didn't withdraw. Or do you want to just move on to the real shady business?
I think we can move on. Until Rob Bolton says somebody's withdrawn, I don't think they've withdrawn. So Rob Bolton is like the god of who's in and who's out. So unless he talks, I'm saying Luke List and Pat Perez are in.
Fair enough. I do want to say, as I always do, a couple different things. Chat, love you hanging out with us. It makes the show so entertaining. If you can press the like button, it really helps us out, keeps the show free, and all that good stuff. If you haven't joined and you want to sign up, promo code JazzRaz, you get 50% off first month and all that good stuff. We have tools, projections, ownership, not just for golf. We have all the sports going. NBA is about to start. We have the great team over there. So we'd love for you guys to come in. We do have weekly stuff going on if you want to just try it. Then once you get in and Tim woos you in Slack, you'll never want to leave. That's our new business model. So get in, try it out, talk to Tim. We got office hours. We'd love to have you as part of the community for sure. We got, I didn't even mention Jazz Janawana Nanana.
Yeah, you got to play him, right?
I mean, when I don't play him, he's actually amazing. I don't know. Being serious, do you have any interest in him? I don't think I do, to be honest.
No, not really at all.
Yeah, it's tough for me to really conceptually gauge where some of these guys are who don't play with fields. We'll get to, there's a bunch of South Korean guys in this field, and it's just so hard to decipher how good they are because they're playing either in Japan or South Korea. It's just it's different competition, and it's hard to glean anything from their results.
Yeah, I mean, he's 90 to 1 in the outright market, so it's in line with the guys that he's priced around. Varner, Dahmen are 80, Lucas is 80, so maybe, I mean, he seems to be priced appropriately if you're going off the outright odds, but it's really hard. Like, we know about the PGA Tour, the European Tour, the Corn Ferry Tour. I can look at finishes there and kind of draw some inferences, but it's like, yeah, like you said, any tours besides those, the finishes are really difficult. It's almost like you have to go off official world golf ranking, which isn't exactly the greatest barometer, and outright odds, but those can kind of give you an idea of where these guys are.
Yeah, I think you got to take that with a grain of salt. I mean, I don't want to. I'm a big Noren guy, but I remember when he came over and he was like seventh, and now not so much. He is the betting favorite over in France this week. Another story for another time.
That must be an awful event.
Whoa, let's not Maya Schwab season. We kick it off with Kevin Streelman, guys like Brian Stewart, Kevin Tway, Si Woo, Hadley, who's learned how to chip a little. You said you might go more stars and scrubs, so I want to hear about this.
Well, what about your boy Brian Stewart? I mean,
you see,
he's been playing pretty good.
He really has.
So yeah, I mean, T4 at the Shriners regained 6.8. T17 at Safeway, the ball striking was right around break even, which for him isn't that bad, to be honest. And then Sanderson Farms, T28 regained 6.1. So I don't love Stewart, but the numbers have been good. 3 solid performances in a row. He's kind of poor man's Joel Dahmen. I would put him,
pretty poor.
$200 cheaper. I guess I'd rather just get up to Dahmen. But the numbers have been good for Stewart, and we know he can putt. That's one of the good things about some of these guys. Like, we know if the ball striking is good, we have a much better chance than obviously a guy like Grillo, who's hopeless. Stewart could get hot with the putter, and if the ball striking is good, he could contend or at least make some noise.
For sure. Now, I will say the one negative about him, he seems to have, and a lot of guys down here do, a pretty extreme Bermuda preference. He really prefers Bermuda, but that's that's such a secondary thing. It's not like, it's not as extreme as some of these really bad outliers. And with a guy like this, when you're playing well, and he really is. So I don't hate it if I'm in a jam. Same old story with me. Adam Long playing really well right now. It's hard to ignore. I mean, it's a guy that truth be told, I really didn't have too much interest coming into swing season for. 3 straight top 25s, gaining consistently with the ball striking, putting up and down. But at 6,700, I think that's a pretty fair price, knowing what we're going to get with 4 rounds and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%. I much prefer him over Stewart. And he's $200 cheaper, but even at the same price, I would definitely play Adam Long. T23, T23, T14 gained, anywhere from 2.7 to 8.7 in the ball striking. It's been positive all 3 weeks. He's just good. I think he's a great play at 6,700 and probably my favorite play down here.
Yeah, it's hard not to be interested. So a couple of names. This is next level, like probably two next level. Matt Jones, he's been hurt. Now he's been withdrawing left and right, but when he played really well. And if he wasn't hurt, I would really like the spot for him. I guess I shouldn't say if he wasn't hurt. If I wasn't worried about the withdrawal risk. So are you willing, because we both know if you have a withdrawal on this, I mean, shut your computer, it's game over. Are you willing to take a shot on him if we don't get word before the tournament, obviously, at what should be really low ownership, considering most people are going to be scared off him just seeing the withdrawals in recent weeks?
So what was he doing last week before he withdrew? Did he play well or did he play?
He played pretty bad. He was 1 over, I believe. So I don't know if it's a situation. It's the time of the show, people. What do? I play psych doctor. Was he saying, you know what, there's rain delays. I have a tournament next week in Korea. I'm probably not going to make this cut. Let me just get out of here and go. Or was he hurt once again? Because in between his withdrawals, he played well at Shriners.
Yeah, I think he probably said, let's just get out of here and get to Korea, and I don't really care about this tournament. So yeah, under that premise, at 6,500, probably a pretty good play. Like you said, ownership will not be there. Um, you know,
I think that's really the thing,
right? I mean, who cares? What if he withdraws? He withdraws. Don't play 100% of them, but you get 15% of them, you're going to be
way over.
Way over.
I think it's an interesting, if you can embrace that risk, you're getting a guy who could be completely healthy and ready to go at a significant discount of what you would compared to just because of the news surrounding him. So just something to consider. Chad is trying to force me to talk about Charlie Hoffman. There's not much to say. He is it's not happening right now. I've tried, believe me. I don't see any reason why he would play well other than the fact that we've seen him play well in the past, but his recent form is just horrible.
Yeah, I'm with you. No Hoff.
Brandon Grace too. Same story.
Brandon Grace is just terrible at golf now.
Like,
I don't know what happened.
How did that happen?
Boy. I guess the only other intriguing guy down here for me was Danny Lee at 6,200.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I get like the scoff again. I just at 6,200, he's basically priced down here with some like legit creative players. And we've seen Lee obviously very inconsistent, but we've seen some upside of him over the years. Had a really good ball striking performance to start the year at Greenbrier, where he gained 7 strokes there, and then kind of just decent at Shriners, nothing great, break even ball striking. But I just think if I had to go down here below 6,300, he would be the guy that I'd be going for. But I think there's plenty of value in kind of the upper 6 to low 7 range. I don't see myself having to get down here, but he was just from a ball striking point through, I think he's played 10 measured rounds, kind of somewhat intriguing. And we know he has a little bit of upside at really cheap, but emergency purposes only.
I respect that because there's not that many guys you can conceivably go to down here. A couple other guys, though, real quick, and I'm just going to somewhat rapid fire because Wyndham Clark is down here. He's been god-awful. I assume no interest there, right?
I hate Wyndham Clark.
Okay, that sums it up. I don't really see it. Just the irons are consistently horrendous. I get the rest of his game is somewhat interesting. Johnny Vegas in a kind of bomber stack. We know how good he is off the tee. The rest of the game has been bad as well. But it's a guy that can kind of find form out of nowhere. You have any interest in him at a really low price point?
Possibly. He gained a lot off the tee last week in the missed cut, I believe.
He did. Yep, he gained 4.7 strokes off the tee at Houston. Didn't do anything else well.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Vegas at 6,400. But again, it's like it's like risk versus reward. Can we just spend a couple $100 more and get a guy who's much more consistent and I think is just a much better play, even if it's Matt Jones? I mean, I don't know. You're taking on a lot of risk with Vegas. Yeah. So yeah, when you get down here, it's kind of hard. It feels like you could just spend a few $100 more and get an actual good play instead of a dart throw. But
last guy I got for you, because truth be told, I actually think he might be the safest below, the real cheapies. And it would be Adam Schenk, who really is just a pretty quality player. He's 18th at Shriners, gained across the board. He missed the cut at Safeway, but he was fine at Sanderson Farms. And that's kind of how he is. It's a little hit and miss, but there's no real leak to his game. It's just kind of consistently blah. To me, I would rather roll the dice with a guy like Danny Lee or Vegas, because I don't know how many times Adam Schenk really gives you, a ceiling performance. But if you're looking for some stability down here, I think he's one of the guys you could look at.
Yeah, I mean, not bad. If I look at his last 6 or 8 starts, he has 3 top 25s. the ball striking has been decent this week, but I think you kind of hit on it. Does he have any upside? Whereas some of these other guys, if Vegas or Danny Lee is on, we know that they can contend in a field like this. I'm not so sure about a guy like Shank. So yeah, I'd prefer Vegas. I'd prefer Danny Lee.
I think so. Last guy, and I don't.
Koepka.
No, Chase Koepka. So would you rather play Chase Koepka or one of the guys from Asia that we don't know about?
One of the guys from Asia that we don't know about. So does Brooks say, like, I will play your tournament, but you have to let my brother in too? Is that – because that's weak as hell if that's the case.
I don't know. I could make a quid pro quo joke and light it on fire here, but I don't know. I don't know what he's doing because it clearly Brooks. He's dragging him along. Obviously, I think they're probably enticing Brooks to come to some of these tournaments with the thought that Chase can tag along. So we'll see. I also would play. Chat just asked about Sang-Hoon Park. So you mentioned this earlier in the show. Some of these guys have a really good official world golf ranking. I don't know how good they really are, though, because they really pad those stats by competing in lesser fields. And that is, in terms of the world golf rankings, the way to vault up. Getting your head bashed in on the PGA Tour does not serve you well when you can be on the Japanese Tour and come in 3rd and 7th and 6th. You rise the rankings really quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing that we can look at, and this is only maybe a 1 or 2 year sample size, but just look at where some of these guys finished when they played this event last year. I mean, Tae-Hee Lee, 55th. Hung Jun Lee, a 73rd and a 60th. Sang-Hoon Park, 67th. I mean, it's not
he was 16th at the Open. It is worth noting. That guy in particular. That is why he's the one. He's pretty highly ranked in the official world golf rankings. But again, I think you make the overall point that it's a very, very unnecessary risk unless you have a serious line of why you want to go to one of them.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Danny Lee is by no means consistent, but we've seen him have multiple top 10s in PGA Tour events and win a PGA Tour event. We've seen him strike the ball at a quality level on the PGA Tour. We know he can do it. I would never pay the same amount for some guy who's extremely unknown and maybe had one flash in the pan performance at the Open. I don't know.
So the most surprising thing about everything, and we'll get out of here in a couple minutes, Jung-Gun Wang has a pitcher on DraftKings. That was the most shocking thing that I've discovered.
Is it actually him, though? It's possible it's not even him.
Fair point. We'll try to confirm that. So the last guy I wanted to bring up, and again, I don't even think I'm going to have this guy. Could you make a case for JB Holmes, only in the sense that he comes out of actually nowhere? And when he does, it seems like occasionally when you get him right, does he really compete? Now, I have no indication of why that would be here, other than that he's a very aggressive driver, generous fairways. You're talking about one of the lowest owned reasonable guys in this entire field.
Yeah, I think you just said it. Definitely probably not a guy you're going to get to if you're making a few lineups, but from an MME perspective, 10%, probably gets you over. And
substantially, maybe.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you really summed it up in like one sentence. He's going to be the lowest owned player who's actually a reasonable play and could contend here. Super inconsistent. That's why he's at 6,400. But yeah, same basis as a lot of these other guys. You're going to do much better spending the extra $200 to get up to JB rather than playing some of these Korean guys who we literally know nothing about.
Fair enough. Did you bet anyone?
No, I have not. No, I can't. I can't do it this week.
Sergio.
No, is that who you bet?
So I did Pat Mayo show yesterday, and we were talking. We got the Sergio Matthias Schwab double. So when that wins, the street cred, my Twitter game back in business. That should catch me up to everyone else who hits a double every other week.
You're not betting enough guys. That's the problem. You need to bet about 30 guys on every tour.
Top 20s.
Top 20s, yeah. Top 20 doubles, and you'll eventually something will just.
You think that, but I don't know. Yeah, this is a great week to bet top 20s. considering not that many people in the field. So you can lay that like minus 350 juice with players grabbing those top 20s.
I dislike limited fields for betting golf outrights because the odds for everyone are just they shrink down so much because it's a small field, 78 player field, and 8 or 10 guys, handful of guys that really are non-competitive. So it just feels like the long shots aren't really long shots. So yeah, I'm not a fan of. I like 144, 156, so we can get Max Homa at 300 to 1 or something ridiculous like that.
Okay. Michael Kim's still coming in at a tidy 1,000 to 1.
Max Homa's probably 300 to 1 in this field.
Yeah, that's also
so
a fair point. But no, I agree with that. Certainly for betting, some of the things are condensed. But I do want to just say real quick, certainly my article up on the site if you want to check it out. And we got a lot of stuff coming on college football and a lot of other things later in the week. It's been fun, not college football in particular, because I can't roster a team without somebody getting critically injured. But like I said, we have a lot going on in Slack chat. Any final thoughts before we duck on out of here for the CJ Cup?
It like I said, it feels like a good stars and scripts week just because there are some value guys that I really like, and it seems to me like the 9K range is a little bit dead. So yeah, that's probably where I'm going this week because guys like Connors, guys like Adam Long seem like really good plays, and that really frees up a lot of money for you to go up top, whether it's JT, whether it's Brooks.
I like it. I think my overall strategy is to maybe look to some of the guys who have found their form not here during the swing season. So some of the European guys that have been playing, I like the way their game seems to be trending. And I'm not sure it's going to be picked up as much as it should if they were here. If Sergio had done, and I get it's a lesser field, but if he had had those results at Safeway, Shriners, and Houston, I think we would be talking about him a lot differently than what he did over in Europe. And I'm not sure it's that much of a difference. So I think I'm going to look to some of those guys. It's a weird time of the year. We've got some people still, we haven't seen guys like Day and Spieth in a while now. It's anyone's guess on where their game is at. So it's the first of a couple weeks over in Asia. We'll have to take it week by week.
Not seeing Spieth for a while is actually a good thing. He should not play ever again. That would be better for everybody.
Just save him for that's oh boy, that's a perfect note to end this show on. So on that note, like I said, we're gonna duck on out of here. I'll be back in 4.5 hours doing this all over again. I will be talking lineup construction, weather, tee time stacks, maybe some other type of, I think it's a good week to correlate your lineups. Maybe some where you think the course plays easy, some you think the course plays hard. We'll get into all that 8 p.m. EST with me and Jason Roslin. Thanks, Josh, for producing. Thanks, chat, for stopping down. That's not even a real sentence. Stopping out here to watch us do the CJ Cup. I'm going to bounce on out of here before I just completely lose it. So we will see you next week for the Zoizo. Good luck, everyone, and hope to see you later tonight.